There's a house in West Dublin. It's where the Shortall family live.
Come in.
In the garden of that house,
Down below, probably.
there's a shed.
That's where he has the tape recorder.
And in that shed is a man called Enda. He's got all sorts of stuff in there. Model trains, family photos, old vinyl 45s and some comfy seats.
He could smoke his pipe down here in peace.
That's Enda's son, David.
And then the lads would come down on a Sunday night, the whole lot of us, and we'd all have a lad's time, you know.
David says his dad has a very special tape.
David has been at me for quite some time about this, you know.
It's a recording made over 55 years ago.
We kind of gave in.
It's in an old biscuit tin for safekeeping. There was a time everything that needed safekeeping found its way into an old biscuit tin.
USA assorted. What? This is the tape recorder down here, Philips 4-track.
The recording is a bit like a time machine.
Are we switched up? Right, we have to wait for the little light to come on here. We might miss something now, you know.
It brings us back to October 1963.
Valve lighting up, and off we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado,
This is it.
we take great pleasure, along with Mr. Bill Fuller, to present the #1 country and western singer in the United States, Mr. Johnny Cash. Thank you very much.
Johnny Cash.
I hear the train a-comin', it's rolling around the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on.
Johnny Cash's first tour of Ireland, 10 gigs in 12 days, included this performance. It hasn't been heard in 55 years.
When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns. But I shot a man in Reno just to watch him.
He was 31 years old and he'd sold 11 million records.
When I hear that whistle blowing, I hang my head and cry.
Given what we've come to learn about Johnny Cash's life, this recording is a fascinating piece of musical archaeology. It gives us a glimpse into the life of the man in black. Johnny seems to be enjoying this time on the road, playing his songs and, as we now know, falling in love. Every song you hear in this documentary, every burst of applause, every crowd noise, it all comes from this tape. And while many of us are too young to have been there, some people were lucky enough to hear this performance first time round.
Well, I'd been a Cash fan since 1958.
That's Billy Lee, a huge Johnny Cash fan.
He was my musical hero at the time. We used to go out to Paddy Moody's record shop down in Orme Key and we'd buy all those great albums at the time. Cash, Fat Stum, you know.
This was the early 60s. Ireland was a very different place.
You know, when you see these newsreels, everything's in black and white. Well, it wasn't black and white, really. You know, there was no colour. We were a very repressive society.
I bet I'd move it on a little farther down the line. Far from
Sean Lemass was Taoiseach. The Cuban Missile Crisis had just brought the world to the brink of disaster, and the Late Late Show was only 1 year old.
And I'd let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away.
The fashion at the time, everybody looked the same. Everybody wore an Italian suit with a white shirt and a string-pipe tie. Everybody looked the same. There was no sense of originality whatsoever.
Enda Shortall was working part-time in the sound hire business.
I remember climbing poles down on Board Quay to put up speakers. Yeah. Corpus Christi processions.
They did all the big gigs.
And there was no health and safety around it, and there was nobody saying to you, don't go up that ladder, you're high enough, you know. But my God, when I looked down, and here was I with a spanner tightening the bracket on, and then going down, bringing up the speaker like this and clicking it into place. But that was the business then, yeah. We had a good few ballrooms in town at the time, the Crystal, the National, the Iron.
And on the night Johnny Cash played in Dublin, Enda Shortall was working at the National Stadium.
I was with Dermot Hurley, And he was providing the sound for the Johnny Cash show in the National Stadium.
Making the tape of that performance on the 19th of October 1963 just sort of happened.
We were up in the box. We had a tape recorder there. We had a lead going from it and into the back of the amplifier, and we stuck it on.
Thank you very much. I could hardly hear you there for a minute.
While the tape may not have been very high tech,
All right, thank you. We're gonna try to do all your requests for you tonight before we go.
you can certainly hear those Dublin accents shouting, "I walk the line."
Okay. All right. I promise. We're gonna try. Thank you. We would, Elvis who?
Many of the halls and ballrooms Johnny Cash played on that tour are gone now, but one that remains almost fully intact is the Dreamland Ballroom in Athy, County Kildare.
Welcome to the Dreamland Ballroom at High.
That's Bill Giltrap.
This was one of our main haunts. 63, I remember coming here and Johnny Cash was playing. Now I can vividly remember Johnny Cash because he held the guitar up very high. Hello there.
Have a great day.
Isn't it lovely?
It is indeed.
This is all queue up here. I wasn't here one night, but a fella with a truck, he wasn't being allowed in or something. I think he went back home and got a truck and drove through the doors. These are the same doors you came in here. Lots of feet have trodden through there. And this is the box office. We buy our tickets here on the right. And one chap told me he had occasion, I think it was after the dance, to go into the office. And he said this floor was covered in pound notes. It was a sea of money. Everything, of course, was cash. It was a real cash cow, as they say. This is the same floor now. Man, that you spring up and down, it was fabulous. And over here, there was an annex there, and you could sit in there. It's all blocked off now, and there's a little youth centre at the far side of it, and you sat at tables there, and there was a mineral bar as well.
The tour was organised by Kerry-born promoter Bill Fuller. He was the man who brought so many Irish bands to Las Vegas in the 60s, and by Tom Costello, a Dublin-based impresario. And it wouldn't have happened without Johnny's manager at the time, Saul Holliff. This is a period of Johnny Cash's life that fans are fascinated by.
1963, the build-up to that October tour.
That's Paul McCann. He wasn't even born in 63, but he has a huge interest in the singer.
Like, it really was a fascinating period because all the things, the myths around Johnny Cash and his love life and his addiction to drugs and Ring of Fire, song he's kind of most known for, it was all kind of happening in and around that period.
The lineup for the tour featured Johnny's constant companions,
They were called the Tennessee Three.
musicians who remained loyal through his darker days.
I'd like you to make welcome
Lead
a fine
guitar.
guitar player, Luther Perkins.
Johnny's guitar player since he started.
Drums,
W.S. Holland.
There was a rockabilly drummer, and he played on Carl Perkins' Blue Suede Shoes.
bass guitar.
The fellow here on the chewing gum is probably the best bass player on stage right now. I'd like to make welcome Marshall Grant.
And Johnny himself on rhythm.
Dressed in black, as you would expect. Had a black leather jacket on.
Now here's a story about the Rock Island Line. The Rock Island Line, she runs to New Orleans.
Billy Lee saw Johnny Cash 3 times on the tour,
The railroad said it don't.
and on the very first night, he also got to meet his hero.
We drove down to Drogheda. I think we stopped for something to eat, and we eventually arrived at King's Court.
The first show was at the Granada Ballroom, in the country music stronghold of King's Court in County Cavan.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit nervous, and it was his first show. And immediately when we arrived, we went straight into the dressing room. Now, the dressing room was very sparse. There wasn't a whole lot there. I got chatting to him for a good 5 or 10 minutes. I shared a beer with him.
That wasn't the end of Billy's encounters with Johnny on the tour. After King's Court, County Cavan, the tour would play ballrooms in Mallow, Mullingar, Salt Hill, Limerick, and even the seaside town of Rush in County Dublin, and the big show at the National Stadium in Dublin. Why ballrooms? Well, that's all you had if you wanted to play outside the big cities. Even in Dublin, you had to choose between a cinema and a boxing stadium.
That Johnny Cash tour represented a huge wave of optimism that was in Ireland in '63.
Colin Walsh is a music fan from Athy.
It was a big slice of the 20th century landing in an old market town. The town was doing well at the time. It had a number of factories. Oddly enough, we were particularly proud of the asbestos factory. That wave of optimism that had come in '63 had come on the back of the election of John F. Kennedy, very much identified as an Irish Catholic. And it gave a kind of a new wave of international nationalism, if that makes sense, so that we were identifying with Irish America.
1963 was already turning out to be a good year for Ireland, with another visit from America a few months before, in June.
I'm glad to be here. It took 115 years to make this trip and 6,000 miles.
Playing support to Johnny was one of Ireland's up-and-coming acts of the time, a certain Eileen Reid and the Cadets.
The first one was The Hanger. That was down in the Sea Point, Galway, and we were on there with Johnny. You don't realise how great it was until you only look back and you say, we were actually on with someone who was that famous, world famous. This was a big thing, and especially travelling around with him, and he was fantastic. We loved country music, loved it. Tom Costello was their manager, was involved there because he was telling the ballrooms and where to go and that. We would have gone on and done the first, wait till all the people come in, that sort of way. But that was great for us because all of a sudden people were hearing us that never heard us before, this is a new band or something.